Today we're going to be discussing the biggest challenge of our generation. What is the biggest challenge of our generation of Jews? If you're a teenager growing up today, what is the biggest challenge? What do you guys think the biggest challenge is?
Social media.
Social media. Popularity. As Jews.
Honestly, probably facing anti-Semitism.
Facing anti-Semitism, okay, but I mean, did previous generations also face anti-Semitism?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's maybe, and social media is good, and we all suffer because of social media, but is that specifically for Jews? What is the biggest challenge for Jews of our generation? Anyone else want to try?
Being able to speak up.
Being able to speak up, okay? Within the Jewish community or in general?
Just like in general about.
Okay. My only response to that, which is true what you're saying, my only response to that would be, maybe in previous generations we also couldn't speak up, right? Ashley.
I think speaking up is definitely one thing, but also speaking up and actually being heard too. That's also something difficult because there's a lot of people whose mindsets are winded and covered and they can't see different. So having your voice be heard is also something important.
Right, so many people are so locked in to how they view everything. So you want to try to bring up new perspectives and everyone's just so married to their ideas. Okay. So I'm going to share something that maybe you guys weren't expecting. One of the biggest challenges of our generation for Jews is actually that everyone within the Jewish community is happy with me. Everyone is happy with where I am on a Jewish level. This is one of the biggest challenges for our generation. A teenager today could go to school and everyone says, wow, you have a flag of Israel on your backpack. You're just the greatest, right? Someone walks around with a Star of David necklace and says, you're just perfect, right? In this generation, maybe because the standards, our parents and the previous parents, maybe they get so nervous of what would happen to us. But now it seems that no matter what we do, as long as we basically don't convert out of Judaism, everyone is happy with us. This is the biggest challenge. How many teens today are being challenged socially to take on a new mitzvah? How many teens today are being challenged socially to do more than just say Am Yisrael Chai? So today I want to discuss what's going on here and how each and every one of us can break out of this mold. And I want to start with asking each and every one of you a question. I want you to be thinking tonight. In previous generations, everyone had to climb big mountains in Judaism. What is our Jewish mountain that we haven't yet begun to climb? And before we get there, I want to talk about the famous mountain. Not Mount Sinai, but there was the first mountain a Jew has ever climbed. Anyone know which mountain that was? What was the first mountain a Jew ever climbed? It's not Magic Mountain, Six Flags.
Abraham.
What were you saying? Abraham, yeah. Abraham and Isaac. Abraham and Isaac is the first mountain a Jew ever climbed. The story goes is that Abraham was told by God, I want to test you to see if you're super loyal to me. What did he do? He said, I want you to take your son Isaac and carry him to the top of the mountain. I know this sounds crazy. But he says, I want you to build an altar there out of stone. And then I want you to tie up your son, bind him so he can't move. And then I want you to sacrifice him. Like slaughter him. This was very difficult for Abraham. But he says, God, my child, I love him, but if this is what you want, I'll do it. Then he climbs the mountain alone with his son. There's no one else around. He ties him up. And as he takes the knife and he puts it to his son's neck, Then we know what happens next. A hand comes, grabs his arm. It was God basically, and says, Abraham, stop. Do not harm your son. This was all a test. I just wanted to see how far you're willing to go for God. How far are you willing to go if you're going to be the father of the Jewish people? And you went this far, you're good. Yes.
Did God not already know how devoted Abraham is to him? Why do you have to test Abraham?
Great question. Did God already know how devout Abraham was? Why did he have to do this interesting test? It's a great question. Because does he not know my thoughts and my heart? So what's interesting is, God knows everything. Yet he still wants to see it come out of us. Why? Let me ask you this. You one day may find yourself married, right? And your wife one day is going to go to you and say, Noah, do you love me? And you're going to say, what do you mean, do I love you? Did I not get married to you? Of course. But you didn't tell me today, she says. Is my heart? Of course I love you. In my mind, of course I love you. But in this physical world, bringing what's in our heart and mind into expression is the most powerful thing. So Abraham and Isaac on the top of the mountain alone, God stops him from killing his son. And now God says, you're going to be the father of the Jewish people. But this is the question I have today. Why was it important that Abraham sacrificed Isaac on a mountaintop? To be closer to God. Okay. To be closer to God. Welcome back. To be closer to God.
Here's right there.
Anyone else have any ideas why was it important to be on top of the mountain? To show the people. That would be a good answer. But the problem is that God wanted them to be alone. It says that they walked up alone. No one was around. No one could get to them. Maybe I could just run somewhere in the desert. And also, God is not necessarily in heaven where we have to climb a mountain to get there. He's here as much as he is on the moon. The rabbis tell us something so powerful. And listen to this. This is life-changing stuff. Why on a mountain? Why alone? Number one, God wanted to teach all of us today, because these stories are important for us today, right? He wanted to teach us all today that to be a Jew, number one is, when you serve me, you have to climb a mountain. It has to be something that's difficult. This was the first time that the Jewish future is on display. Abraham and his son Isaac, the final test. God said, number one, climb a mountain. Let everyone in future generations know that if our Judaism is not something that's pushing us, then we have to ask ourselves, what's our mountain? Number two, God wanted that Abraham and Isaac would have to do this alone. This is maybe the most powerful thing. So much of our lives today is, what are people saying about me? So much of when I do good, it's in order for the ego boost, for the clout, for everyone to say, oh, you're amazing, you're so sweet, you're so this, you're so that. But what happens when I have to risk it all? Maybe even kill my only son, but no one will be able to see it. No one's going to be able to say it actually happened. No one will ever even be able to show a photo. There's no Instagram, there's no TikTok video, there's no nothing. In those moments, do I have what it takes to be the ultimate Jew? So now, so many of us are sitting today in 2024, and we find ourselves realizing that we're in a world where, number one, no one's giving me a mountain to climb. Everyone's saying, a Jew, you're amazing. As long as you're alive, you're happy, and here's a bowl of chicken soup, we love you, you're amazing, Am Yisrael Chai. Where's my mountain? I wake up in the morning and I'm already great, which, by the way, is a good thing. Our value is not necessarily connected to our Judaism, but still, where's the mountain? Number two, we're realizing today that if we want to become the best Jewish version of ourselves, it may demand that we walk alone. It may demand that we may find ourselves in a situation where we are the most dedicated Jews in our whole family. And all of a sudden I look to my right, I look to my left, and maybe even my mother, maybe even my father, maybe I'm the youngest sibling, and my oldest siblings don't care about doing anything really Jewish, going to synagogue, thinking what mitzvah I could take. But I find myself alone, saying, I want more of this. I want this to become a much bigger part of my identity. Maybe I'm living in a household where no one's even considering kosher, but I just don't like it when McDonald's is brought into the house. I just don't like it when everyone's just going and we're eating at non-kosher restaurants. I think I'm ready for the next mountain. So what do we see today is that our generation needs more mountains, and we're actually ready for it. We don't, subconsciously, a part of us doesn't even understand, why is everyone saying I'm perfect? Why is everyone saying I'm amazing? I want more, and I know there's more. There's no way that all of Judaism comes out to me being able to stand by a protest and say I'm Yisrael Chai. There has to be something more to this. You have a question?
Yeah, I just asked this thing. I feel like our generation, I feel like when people react like this because, we're looking at a lazy,
A lazy generation.
Yeah, and I feel like it's okay, Aaron, okay. I feel like they think that if they push harder on us, that it's gonna push us way further. But I don't know.
Right, that's a great point. Some people see our generation as lazy, so we can't push them. We don't want to upset them, and all this could be true. But as Jews, we have to always see what does God want from us. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like people also victimize themselves, which is a really big problem. Like, a bunch of teenager Jews must be like, oh, like everyone's so anti-Semitic, it's just so hard to be a Jew, like there's nothing you can do, but really it's the opposite, you should be doing what you want.
Right, absolutely. You see, by the way, this is coming from you guys, the teens. Everyone's saying, really deep down, I want more. So what is our mountain? What mountain should we all think about climbing? So number one, the answer is simple. God already told us what our mountain should be. Should our mountain be cleaning the beaches?
No.
Should our mountain be saving the whales? No. Should our mountain be going to and getting involved in maybe politics or whatever, all these good things? These are all important things. But what's my mountain as a Jew? God already said what our mountain is. Clearly, on Mount Sinai, on that mountain. He said, if you're a Jew, for the rest of time, till Mashiach comes, every generation, this should be your mountain. These 613 commandments. So all those things are great, and someone needs to be doing that, and maybe we need to be encouraging it. But as a Jew, I have to start asking myself, which one of the 613 am I going to start taking serious? Yeah.
So as mountain, you mean it should be our priority, but we can still go for those things too, right?
Correct. Those are part of life. Getting a driver's license is part of life. Going to work and having a business is part of life. But what's the big mountains? The challenges, yeah. The challenges, exactly. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
That's an interesting Jewish thought.
Exactly. So, I want to tell you guys a story about a boy that decided to climb a mountain and stand alone. His name is Kevin. Kevin was born to a regular Jewish family, non-Orthodox, regular family in America. All of a sudden, they started getting slowly involved in their synagogue, in the community. They went to the local Hebrew school. But then, one day, the parents got really inspired and they said, you know what? We're sending Kevin to a Jewish day school. All day, he should be in school. One thing led to the next. Kevin started getting involved in the teen programming, and before you know it, he said to his parents, I think I want to go to yeshiva. I think I want to go all in, full day, Torah study, just like they do it in the Orthodox community. So his parents, it's very interesting, his parents said, you know what? If this is what you want, we allow you to do it. And at 14 years old, he was signed up to go to yeshiva. But then he gets a call from his grandfather. His grandfather calls him and says, Kevin, me and you, we gotta go out for a brunch. He meets up with his grandfather. His grandfather was the one that built all the wealth for the family. And he turns to his grandson and he says, Kevin, are you mad? Do you realize that if you want to be successful in this world, you can't be going to yeshiva? You gotta go to college, do what everyone else does, do what I did. And Kevin says to his grandfather, well, this is what I want to do. So Kevin's grandfather decided to do what always works in his world. He says, okay, what's it gonna cost me? He literally tells his grandson, I will give you $10,000 a month for the next year if you decide to go to a regular school and don't go to yeshiva. Kevin turns to his grandfather and says, I want to go to yeshiva. So he says, you know what? I'm gonna up the ante. I want you to go so badly. I will wire into a trust fund $700,000 that will sit and gain interest, and you could get it at 21 years old. Now, if you do the math, from 14 to 21 years, you have a lot of time for that to grow. It would set, when he would be 21 years old, he would be able to buy a home. He'd be wealthy. He'd be rich. He'd have $1 million in the bank. He turns to his grandfather and he says, Grandpa, I need to tell you. I've found something that money cannot buy. And I hope one day that you too will be able to own something in your life that money cannot buy as well. Kevin today goes by the name Chaim. What Chaim did, was one of the hardest things in the world, which is to climb a mountain, to take difficult paths to grow as a Jew. And yes, sometimes to do it alone. To have to not have your grandfather's support. To not have everyone in the world saying, you're amazing, you're amazing. He was amazing until he just climbed too high in the mountain, right? But he realized, one second, I have something. My connection to God, my Judaism, is something that money can't even buy us. Grandpa, is there anything in your life that you have that money can't buy? I'm not saying today that everyone here should start thinking of going to yeshiva and changing their names. That's not what we're saying. But I hope the idea rings true, which is our generation. We have to rise up and say, what is my mountain? And maybe I'm even climbing my mountain alone. Have you guys ever heard the story of Sam and the Superdog? You're gonna love the story. There was a guy by the name of Sam who started going to his local Chabad. And as he goes to his Chabad for 4 years, he doesn't take on any new mitzvah. But after 4 years, he calls up the rabbi and he says, Rabbi, I've been listening to your talks for 4 years. It's time. I want a mountain. I want to climb something. And he says, you know what I'm going to start with? I'm going to start with kosher. Rabbi says, Sam, kosher? Kosher's like, it's not like the easiest thing in the world. Like, you could do it, but he says, Rabbi, I want to do kosher. So the rabbi says, let's do it. We're going to start. When do you want to start? So Sam says, Rabbi, I want to start tomorrow morning. So he says, what do you mean you want to start eating kosher tomorrow morning? It's the morning right now. What are you doing from now till tomorrow morning? He says, Rabbi, give me one more day to eat non-kosher. Tomorrow morning I'm starting. So it says, so Sam goes, after he talks to the rabbi, he goes for dinner to his favorite non-kosher restaurant. It's called Super Dogs. It's a stand, and in Super Dogs, they sell these super hot dogs, which have huge buns, huge sausage, filled with with relish and onions and fried bacon, pastrami. It's like the whole spiel, the super dog. He says, let me have my last super dog. So he sits down and he's eating his final super dog. So someone sits down next to him. It's one of these places that had like stool chairs where everyone sits down and just eats. So the guy turns to him and says, how's the dog? He says, it's the best. Super dog is the best. He says, good. And then he says, you know what? This is actually my last super dog. So the guy says, really? Why is this your last super dog? Sam starts thinking and he says, this guy doesn't know what kosher is. It's too complicated. I'm not going to explain to him why this is my last super dog. He just says, he thinks of him as something. He says, you know, I fell in rough times, so the budget's a little smaller. This is my last super dog. You know, just don't bother me. Let me finish my meal. The guy turns to him and says, wow, you can't afford a super dog? He says, today's your lucky day. He says, I am the owner of super dogs. This is what he tells him. And he pulls out of his wallet a small business card. And he says, from today on, I don't want you ever financially not to be able to afford it. He says, from today on, you have a card, and on the card it says lifetime supply to the card holder of super dogs. He gives it to him, and he says, forever you will have free super dogs at my restaurant. Sam's head's racing. He's like, this is crazy. I just got a lifetime supply from the owner of super dogs. His head's spinning. He's about to start keeping kosher tomorrow morning, and now he just got the greatest gift of all time. He gets into the car. He calls the rabbi. He says, Rabbi, you're not going to believe what just happened. What's God doing to me? I'm supposed to start keeping kosher tomorrow morning. How could God tonight, give me an unlimited supply of super dogs?
It's a challenge. It's a mountain.
So the rabbi, that's it. So the rabbi tells him, he says, you know why God gave you this card, the super dog card? It's because he sees that he believes in you so much. He loves you so much that he realizes that you have the power to be someone that ascends an even higher mountain than you thought you could ascend. And because of that, he's giving you this because he believes you could overcome this challenge. He's not trying to show you shouldn't do this. He's showing you how much you should do this. Sam took that card and he kept it. The next morning, he started keeping kosher. His friends, his family, they weren't necessarily kosher. Maybe they a little kosher at home, but when they went to restaurants, he went all in. He started climbing the mountain. Today, he keeps not just kosher, he keeps Shabbos as well. And Sam is known to have a lot of guests for Shabbat dinner. Everyone's welcome. And if you go to Sam's house, you'll find art all around his dining room, his Shabbat room. But he has one piece of art that's his favorite. He has a beautiful frame with a large border, and at the center of the frame is a square card that says unlimited super dogs to the card holder. And every time people ask him and say, Sam, what's the deal with this card? He says, that card is a reminder to me how much God believes in me, that there's no mountain that I can't ever climb. Yes?
What would you do in that situation if you got that unlimited card? No, I think I have to ask. What would you do?
So I keep kosher.
No, I'm just like if you were in that situation, I
Hypothetically speaking.
Are you asking me?
I know
to
you-
share something.
No, I'm asking you.
What would I do?
Yeah.
So you need the hot.
Yeah, he needs a hot dog.
No,
I would honestly, to the next morning, that thing would be on eBay and I'd be breaking in the high. Yeah.
Wait, so you keep Shabbat, but you're inviting people to your home for Shabbat. Aren't you thus inviting people not to keep Shabbat if you know they're going to try?
Oh, that's a great question. Which happens, everyone that comes to us, basically drives.
Yeah.
So it's a very good question, and there's a lot of back and forth in Jewish law, but ultimately, there's a singular foundation, which is Dam L'Kafskos. As Jews, it's important to us to always give other Jews the benefit of the doubt. So, there's someone that joined us last week for Shabbat dinner that was staying at the Bel Air Hotel, which is like 2.5 miles from here. And guess what? He kept Shabbos. He didn't drive here. He walked here from the Bel Air Hotel. So and he walked back. He actually came for morning services and evening
Where's the
services.
Bel Air?
Yeah, where is it?
Bel Air Hotel,
One on Sunset.
Google it. Not on Sunset. It's in the hills. So generally, the way it works is we just say, listen, we have services here. You're welcome to come for Shabbat dinner, and if you need a place to stay, we'll find a place for you to stay. Maybe you're walking here. It's not for me to make verdicts on other Jews that they're choosing to do something that they shouldn't be doing. Does that make sense? Good question. You guys want one more story?
Sure.
There's a girl that was part of a mixed marriage. The mother was a Jew, the father was not Jewish.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good. Ashley, amazing. So, a mixed marriage. One parent was Jewish, one parent was not. And as she got older, the parents were starting to fight on what should be the religion of the child. The mother said, my kid's not going to be a Jew. She has to. We're giving her bat mitzvah. We're sending her to Hebrew school. There's nothing to talk about. The husband said, I'm okay spending money for her to go to a Jewish education on one condition. There's equality here. She has to also be baptized.
What? I didn't either.
He says, you want to do the Jewish thing? I want her to be baptized. She's going to have time with the priest, and then she's going to be baptized. By the way, if you want to avoid all these things,
Don't marry
marry a Jew.
guys.
So, the story goes is that she's brought to the Russian Orthodox Church. She goes to the Russian Orthodox Church for her baptism. Before this happened, she started going to Hebrew school. She started getting lessons with the rabbi for her bat mitzvah. And she knew for herself what she wanted to be. She knew she wanted to be a Jew. She wanted to marry a Jew, to have a Jewish home.
The kid that was.
The kid,
Okay.
the girl. But a deal is a deal. So she's brought to the church. As she gets to the church, they start going through the process. She has a sad face. She's fighting every step of the way. But the dad is pushing her. Just do it. Just do it. A deal is a deal. Throughout the whole thing, they start telling her you have to say certain prayers. So she reluctantly starts saying those prayers. At the end of the whole situation, the priest says, maybe it's part of the ceremony, maybe it's something symbolic, but the priest says, now I want you to come to the holy and we're going to light a candle. Some ceremony, something. She stands in front of the candle. And as she lights the candle, she closes her eyes and she says, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. She says the prayer for Shabbat candles. Because it was Friday night.
Oh my God. Okay.
And in that moment, she stood on a mountain and she stood alone. And she said, in this moment, I'm making it clear that my journey may be a little bit different than even my father's journey. I'm a Jew, and I see my mountain, and I know my job. I have to climb it, even if it's difficult. Even if for a short amount of time people don't understand me. And even if it means that I walk and I climb alone. So, my friends, C-Teamers, I think tonight the message is very clear. I believe one of the strongest challenges of our generation is everyone saying we're just all amazing. And we are amazing. And it's important to recognize we are amazing. But we know deep down there's something happening. Like Maya and Lola were saying, that we sense as the younger generation that people are not demanding from us as much as we know we could be demanding from ourselves. So what do? How do we know how much should be demanded of us? Very simple. We ask God. We look into the Torah, the timeless book of lessons of how a Jew should live. And whatever is asked of us there should be our lifelong journey. Today I may be on the bottom of the mountain, but I know that I'm not spending my life just walking straight. I have to climb. And I want to tell you, for anyone that's ever climbed a mountain before, mountains are not escalators. It doesn't just go straight up. If you want to climb a mountain, if you have like a backyard, or if you go on like a hike, not a beaten path, like you're like climbing a mountain, sometimes you go up, and then to get higher, sometimes you look and you realize, okay, I gotta actually go a little bit down, cross over to a better spot, to then go back up. It's not just up. Even when we want to climb our mountains and become the best Jews of ourselves and take another mitzvah, someone may say, you know what, I'm going to try to start keeping kosher. I'm going to try to start maybe Friday night until the Shabbat candle goes out, I'm not going to use my phone. As long as the candle's burning. Something, right? And I do it 1 week and next week, and then I mess up. We don't fall off mountains. We simply are on the journey. There's no escalator. It's not easy. But it's the greatest journey a Jew could do, is grow and challenge themselves in their Judaism. And if there's one thing I wish every single person around the table today, it's may we all be lucky enough to challenge ourselves, to climb a mountain, to take on a mitzvah, and maybe have the courage to climb alone. Thank you for joining.